How's it going, guys? My name is Franco and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing our monthly analysis for the month of February. So what we do in these videos is we go back, we take a look at what has happened or what has transpired in the last month, and we look at our predictions going forward in this bull market. Have a look at what could come in, February, March, and ultimately the rest of 2025 and this cycle. We've been doing this now for a long time. So if you guys do enjoy this sort of content, please do feel free to subscribe. We are pushing for 1,000 subs and we're getting awfully close. And remember to like and comment any questions you may have down below. But let's jump straight into the analysis for the month of February. Now, if you guys have been paying close attention to our videos, we've been following the 4-year cycle. It's pretty clear cut at this point in time. If you guys haven't been following, do go back and check out some of our prior videos. But 1 year up, 1 year down, 2 years across, that's what we've been following, and we are finally in our final bull market year, and we're pretty well just hoping that this goes parabolic this time of year. But what we have been looking at as well is the potential of some pullbacks. So you can see in every single green cycle there is like at least one major pullback. You can see this one was 4 bars in. This one here, it doesn't look like a massive correction, but it was, about 30 or 40% from memory. If we just pull this up, not the date range, but the price range, just from top to low, you can see that is a 40% correction. And then if you go back, obviously, to 2021 cycle, pretty big correction, 4 bars in. And here we are now. We are, what are we, 3 or 4 bars in? We're 3 bars in, but we've been sort of looking at potentially 5 bars being our correction. That takes us out to April. April is a pretty common correction zone. So that's what we've been looking at on the macro scale. And outside of that, I really wish I could provide some thoughtful analysis, but ultimately price has just been chopping around. You can see the January candle, the January candle, pretty well just the same as the December candle in terms of price points reached. You can see it was a green candle, which is good, but a whole lot of really nothing on the macro scale. We are still up in terms of our swings. You can see our swings for this cycle are intact and they're okay. So at this point in time, we've really got no reason to believe that this cycle is over. We're still up on the macro scale. What we don't want to see is, the swing. Or if we change this like that, there we go. What we don't want to see is the swings. If we do get a big swing lower into this sort of area, we'd like to hold that 74,000. Ultimately, technically speaking, the support, or the lowest we can go is this 49,000. If we break that, that is cycle over. If we hold in here, it's very scary. But if we were to come down and test this sort of range, that is technically okay, and then we can push up later in the cycle. We could see something like that. Of course, these price points and times, don't worry too much about them. I'm just sketching here, but you kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about, right? Ideally, yes, we do just continue up and up and up, but there is that chance of a pullback on the macro scale that does hold the structure perfectly fine. So what I'm saying is we are, still in perfectly fine condition. There is room for a pullback. We can see a considerable pullback, sort of down to that $74,000 level. And technically speaking, nothing would have really changed. Of course, that's a long way away at this point in time, but it is something to be prepared for. So I think on the long term, nothing has really changed in the last month. We'll have a look at the daily chart and you'll see it is just a lot of chop lately. And then if you have a look at Bitcoin on the daily chart, and this is why, our analysis really hasn't changed, since last month. This was, the last time we did our monthly analysis video, not 31st, actually, it would have been Jan 1st. But you can see, like, since, what day is this here? Like, since, we broke into this range, November 20th, to now, we're still just in this pretty big choppy range. I've just got some support and resistance, 50% level. We are above the 50% level, so that's good. But ultimately, what we need is a break above one or a break below, one way or the other. We need to, push up, hold, and then go higher. That's what we need. As long as, if you have a look at some of these candles where they just sort of wick up and come straight back down, that's not what we want. Wick up, straight down. And then, it does work, the other way as well, where this one in particular around the inauguration on the 13th, that was just a big wick below, big scare out, a lot of liquidations. And since then, you push up higher. So you can see that prices all over the shop. A lot of people probably getting wrecked. In the short term, I guess it's good trading if you know what you're doing, but it is, a whole bunch of nothing in the grand scheme of things. And despite all these crazy events that have been, going on, obviously you had like the election, I think was this push up here from memory. This one here, I don't even know what Jan 13th was, but very scary for some reason. You obviously then had the inauguration, I think, on the 20th, if my memory is serving me correctly. So it's just been, lots of macro events, I guess you could say, major events that have had the price going all over the shop. But ultimately, you can see here that nothing has really changed. We're at the same price point now that we were, what day is this? The 5th of December. So don't get chopped out in this sort of, brutal range, until something does happen. This candle here could have faked a lot of people out. But if you just wait for the close, what we're looking for, as we said, is either a break up and, consolidation, or a break below and consolidation before we go lower, right? That's what we're hoping for. Not the downside necessarily, but, we're looking, for that eventual breakout, which way it does come. The good news is that, we are on the high side of the 50%, and we are actually holding 100,000 at this point in time. You can see we are at about 101,000. So that's sort of that level that we've been talking about. I know the 50% does technically come in just under 100,000, around 99,500. But what we really want is that, $100,000, that big sentimental level to be held. Because you can see there's been a lot of times in the past where we've, if we just draw a horizontal line, we'll just put it in 100,000. So we just go 100. If you have a look at this level here, you can see there are, multiple examples of, basically push-ups and failures. Here's one here. We'll take off that, but here's one here, here's one here. Here's another one here, right? So there's many examples. You can see even goes to the other side where we get fake downs. So, push up, break, fake below. Same thing again here, fake below. So I guess, oh, that's a bit small. We'll delete that one, but you get the idea, right? So, whereas prior, if we're looking at this on the positive side, prior, 100K was acting as big resistance. Now it is acting as support. So if we can hold the 50% level, then, that is short-term bullish, but ultimately, we need to wait for a breakout one way or the other. Now, as for Ethereum, still looking like one of the slower altcoins this cycle. We similar to Bitcoin, but in a less, good position in the sense that, macro, we are still holding up, right? Didn't mean to move that. But, we are holding up, this trend line. We are technically creating higher and higher lows. You can see, like higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, possibly a higher low here. We are holding this 50% level from, this wick low to the top. It's not exactly on, but that's okay. It's, just for the idea. But we are still just waiting for that $4,000 breakout. That's what we were talking about back here. Waiting for $4,000 to break. It did not break. Same thing back here, no breaks. It is acting as major resistance. So for Ethereum, sort of just in limbo, right? We could technically, if I can find what I'm looking for, my brush, we could technically come back down and test this trend line yet again and then shoot up. But, I would call for concern. My call for concern would probably be this sort of line here, along these lows, and then along that trend line there. If ETH were to come down, break below, retest, and fail, that would probably call it quits for ETH, at least for me. But, at this point in time, nothing has really changed. It is lagging Bitcoin, of course. So if you're looking at, your opportunity cost, you're better off holding a lot of different tokens other than ETH. But if you're someone who's been holding ETH, you've been buying ETH for this whole cycle, and I guess you're waiting for that big breakout to happen. Well, it's once $4,000 breaks, you can see, we had that one period at the all-time high, or the peak of last cycle where we did actually break and close above 400,000. But since then, no weekly closes above 4,000. So a weekly close above 4,000, and then ultimately a monthly close above 4,000 would be very, very bullish. You can see like the monthly closes are just nowhere near that. I like how it changes my drawings, but you can see how the monthly closes are nowhere near. So for Ethereum, in a bit of limbo. Let's wait and see if we do come down lower and test it, or maybe maybe this is the final low and we do just start to push up higher. But we do have to take into consideration as well. You can see how close we are getting to our sort of time frames. So we're looking at the second half of next year. So this is literally Q3, Q4 next year. It's not really time frame. Of course, with Bitcoin, we are looking at October being our top according to the 4-year cycle as we had looked at. Let's see if we can just, that's pretty close, 29th of December, but you can see October is technically the exact date, but we're really just looking at, sort of Q3, Q4 next year as our sell point. But you can see we are getting awfully close to that. So, how much upside potential there is for ETH, I don't know with the time running out, but we can only really wait and see. Okay, now moving on to Solana, we are just here on the weekly chart. So what we have been looking at for Solana for a long time now is that it is very bullish. But I think just this last week has been a little bit scary. There's no doubt with the launch of the old Trump token on Solana definitely created some hype. This is not the sort of price action I'm really a fan of. You can see high volume straight into the top, and ultimately barely above the prior all-time high, only like $20-$30 above the prior all-time high. So really, a lot of volume into not a great pump. I think is cause for concerns for Solana, at least in the short term, possibly in the longer term, looking at this being a macro top. I did say I sold my first bit of Solana on the Jan 22nd. So if we we're not looking to excel the exact top or the exact bottom, but where's Jan 22nd? It was this bar here, I think. Yeah, I probably sold, I might have sold on this one here on the 21st. That's when I sold my Solana. So in that bar somewhere around 240 to 260. So I'd say that's an okay sell. At the end of the day, I can't pick the exact top. It would have been nice for sure to sell at about $300 dollars, but not how it's supposed to be. So whilst I'm concerned about Solana, at least looking like it could be a topping pattern, a lot of euphoria into that peak, and ultimately not a lot of gains is the concern. Is that the sentiment was as bullish as it's ever been, and it's ultimately it's only gone what's that, 10% higher than the the all-time high. And if you have a look at it on the weekly, you can see it basically closed the exact same level. It could be a double top forming there. If we have a look at it on the monthly, you can see that big wick to the upside, and ultimately not a lot of price movement. So it is concerning in my point of view, but at least the holding grace at this point in time is that we could be holding this trend line, still creating higher lows. So we'll wait and see. But ultimately for Solana, as we were discussing a few months ago now, possibly in November or December, that it's definitely not a buy anymore. We've been looking at Solana for a long time. Back we bought in around here, around that sort of $80-$90 is where I bought in. And then since then it has had a good run up. And then ultimately it's not a buy at this point in time. So if you're not in Sol, I wouldn't be looking to buy. And if you are in Sol, I think you're looking at these support levels underneath and questioning, when should I sell out, or when is my, what are my triggers to sell, right? Because ultimately, you just got to protect yourself. Are you saying, all right, once we break this trend line, I'm going to sell? You're looking at some 50% levels. You could do that. Look at some 50% levels. Say, there's one there. That's a good. If I can get this just about right, that's close enough. You can see that there's a good chance that this 50% level and the trend line will sort of match up around that. $200. $200 is a good good psychological level. So you could be looking at that as a potential if that breaks down and closes lower, selling out. But I do think that's sort of where we're up to with Solana, is that getting ready to look at selling. You're better off selling high than waiting and holding the bag the whole way down. So time will tell with this token, but yeah, in my opinion, no more buying. Let's look at selling for Sol. Now, a token that we've been following for a little while now that I'm sort of on the fence on is Trust Wallet. So you can see higher low, higher low, higher low. But we are still technically holding the trend line somehow. We got rejected again at the 50%, which was no good. So sort of, you know, if this can hold, you know, if you're a real degenerate, I guess, crypto investor and you're looking for a potential big return, you know, maybe buying on this trend line is good. You know, it would have paid off for you in the past if you'd have bought at 20 cents or 40 cents or, you know, 50 cents or, you know, whatever it might be. You know, maybe this is another opportunity to buy in, and then, you know, once these higher lows break, or yeah, the lower highs break, that could be good. So I guess best case scenario for Trust Wallet is that we hold here, break above 50%, and then break above some swing tops to get going. Otherwise, you know, if this trend line does break down and proper, you know, closes below, I'd say that's, you know, pretty well it. That's all she wrote. But yeah, we just touch on this just because I have touched on it in the past. So just keep you guys updated if you are interested. But it's a bit of a, probably not the best investment as of right now, but you know, there is still that potential, right? Because it is still holding that trend line, and still there, you know, there's the potential that it does, if it can print you know, a higher low and then a higher high on the macro scale, it could really take off. As for CRO, we were looking at some potential bullish divergence on CRO around that sort of, you know, 12 to 14 cent range. You can see it did act as some temporary support. This post was on the 10th of Jan, and you can see that since the 10th of Jan, we were able to push higher, but got rejected again at the, it's a bit clearer on like sort of the hourly chart. But you know, you can see whenever I made that tweet around here on the 10th of Jan, it did act as, you know, some temporary, you know, sort of a temporary low, as we're talking about in this post, with you know, possible bullish divergence with Bitcoin sentiment resetting. We could see at least an intermediate low. That's what we were looking at. So, you know, of course, no guarantees, as we're still looking at a possible 60% correction should we continue lower. So that's what we were saying. So, you know, could act as an intermediate support. That's sort of what it did do. At least got the price to push up back towards that 15 cents resistance, which did act as resistance, and we since come down lower. So with that, you know, we sort of do go back into the, you know, because it obviously didn't break out, didn't create anything of it, we do sort of have to go back and look at a possible 60% correction with CRO, which does put us, I mean, 60% on the dot. Let's just have a look, right? Does put us around, you know, what range is this? 9.5 cents, 9-10 cents. So we could still be on track to come down to that level. That's what we've been looking at in these past cycles, right? It's very normal, you know, 74, 70, 67%. This cycle we have seen smaller corrections. I think is that one there. Yeah, 63%. So we could see a smaller than 63%. That would be ideal, but you know, ultimately you can see that it is, you know, definitely doesn't look like there's a low forming here. I mean, hopefully it does, right? Hopefully it just springs up and takes away. But ultimately, you know, if you're looking at possible buy-ins for CRO, probably start looking around that 10-cent range. In my opinion, that could be where the support comes in. So that's where I'm looking at this point in time for another 60% correction. And as long as we've, you know, also been talking about these higher swing tops, higher swing bottoms, as long as they play out, give or take, that's, you know, ultimately what we're looking for. And last but not least, Bitcoin dominance still putting in some higher lows, or, you know, at least continuing upwards. So this is something I think just about everyone has been wrong on, is what Bitcoin dominance is going to do this bull cycle. You know, as you guys can see, it's really just, it's grinding up very, very slowly. It's doing quite well. So, you know, everyone is still waiting for that, you know, that eventual rollover and, you know, push down. But what we've been talking about, you know, it was in our top 5 predictions video, is that I don't think this altcoin season is going to be as good as prior ones. You know, if you have a look at these moves, just sort of, you know, give or take a few percentage points, it doesn't really matter. You know, 63%, 46%. I'm going to bet that this one is definitely less than 46%. I'm going to bet it's, you know, probably around that 20 to 30% at best. That's just my opinion. I think we put in a higher low for BTCD. You know, I think this is going to be a pretty bullish chart over the coming years as things get a little bit crazy. People are going to, you know, there's too many altcoins in my opinion, and they're sort of just diluting value. So people will look to come back to Bitcoin in the next bear market quite substantially. So whilst I do still expect an altcoin season of some sorts later in this cycle, you know, I don't think it's going to be as good as prior cycles, just because, you know, there are so many tokens, right? Where does the money go? But we'll wait and see. Of course, at this point in time, Bitcoin dominance is still looking pretty good. So hard to really, hard to bet against Bitcoin dominance at this point in time. But maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But what this is suggesting is that Bitcoin is, the best asset to be holding, and has been the best asset to be holding, since, September 2022, undeniably, right? Is that, if you're looking to get into crypto, is that, Bitcoin has been your best bet over the past couple of years, and it still is the case. So we'll continue to follow this chart. If something does drastically change, of course, if we break it down on smaller time frames, maybe you can start to see some potential higher lows coming in here. It's like these, maybe these are some lower highs. I mean, coming in, but we can only really wait and see. The Bitcoin dominance chart is hard to predict, in my opinion, because it does sort of just, I mean, look at this price action, right? Just churning straight up. So maybe we just continue upwards. Time will tell, but yeah. So that's going to do it for today's video. Let's see what happens with Bitcoin in February. It's really, as we said, it's just in this sort of churn stage. We've got to wait and see for that breakout one way or the other. And that's the same for a lot of cryptocurrencies at this point in time, just waiting for breakout. So let's see when that does eventually come. Hopefully maybe I can give you guys a bit more of an in-depth video next month. But that will be everything for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Guys, do remember, if you did enjoy, hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment any questions you have down below. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.